שלום, שוב אנחנו בין הירדן לבין הים, והפעם פגישה עם הארמית המודרנית, זאת אומרת עם אנגלית, עוד אחת משפות המקום, שמשמשת אצלנו לא רק לתקשורת פוליטית ולא רק לתקשורת מדינית, אלא גם עולם תוכן יהודי ורוחני שלם, והפעם עם סוזן סילברמן. Susan, Shalom.
Hey, how are you?
Well, let's move to the next question. How are you?
I don't want to be in the next one answer.
No, you're not. Susan, by your accent, it sounds as if you were not born in Jerusalem, were you?
I was not born in Jerusalem. I was born in New Hampshire in the US.
Oh, wow, that's one of the first primaries. It's very important for us, this place. So what is it to be, how do you say, New Hampshirean?
New Hampshireite?
Like Yerushalmit, so New Hampshirean or whatever? How is it to be New Hampshireite?
Well, I haven't lived in New Hampshire in many years.
But you were born there, this is your Kinderstube, and somehow you moved through East Coast Judaism into West Coast Jerusalem, the Ma'arav Yerushalayim and Moshava Germanit. So what is this? Who are you?
Right, so I'm very much a New Hampshire girl in lots of ways, and we spent tons of time there until very recently, actually, to be with my parents there. And I loved growing up in New Hampshire. I was one of very few Jews, and weirdly, there are 3 of us who have become rabbis.
Really?
Yes.
Rabbis or rabbi, all kind of genders?
2 men and me. I'll reform.
So you were 3-4 kids in the block, and all of them rabbinated?
We're probably like 10% of the Jews. It's weird, because we were a minority and we sort of like wanted to embrace. I don't know. I mean, I grew up knowing absolutely nothing about Judaism.
So now we learn about you that you are a rabbah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What does that mean to be a rabbah in Jerusalem compared to be a rabbah in East Coast America, North America? It's not the same entity.
It's very different entities. So
take us through the journey.
Well, it's ironic because for me to be the Jew that I am in America is much easier than being the Jew that I am in Israel in a lot of ways. I mean, when I'm with progressive Jews, whether it's here or there, I'm like with my people, right? But there are a lot more progressive Jews in the States. And in fact, my whole world can basically be progressive Judaism there. We're here, being involved in Nashat HaKotel, like getting to the places just to be who I am is a fight, and the fact that we have to fight this fight to be fully Jewish in Israel.
So it means that when you were an American Jew, you were in your comfort zone, and then because of a kind of a Jewish manifest destiny, you moved to the East rather than to the West and came to the forefront of struggling for your identity. This is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's much more of a struggle. That said, I feel much more invested in the future here. I feel like our failures are much more personal to me than they were in the States. They were also personal. I also care deeply about it. But here it feels like a personal failure in a much bigger way than it does.
We'll come to the failures, okay? I mean, as a foundation for a good success story. But you struggle.
Mm-hmm.
What for? How it looks and what for, which is not the same.
How it looks now, you mean?
Who's your enemy?
Who's my enemy? I think my enemy is narrow-mindedness. My enemy is people who feel that they know the will of God, right? Because if they know the will of God and I don't fit into that vision of their will of God, then they're going to fight like hell politically to keep me out of the engagement of citizenry and of being in Israel. Right?
And your Judaism is not streaming out of the word of God? What's the difference between you?
Because it's funny to say, like, because I'm humble.
As Churchill once said about one of his opponents, and there is a lot to be humble about. Okay, no, leave it now. No, leave humbleness aside. We try to explore.
Is that I don't feel that I have the absolute answers. I recognize that the world is big. God is big. You know, all we can do as people is try to, like, you know, interpret as best we can and to live in relationship as Jews with God as best we can. But for me to insist that someone else isn't legitimate,
but it's as fanatic. You come to me, I say, forget about it. If there is God, she's asleep.
Right.
None of my business. I don't know. I don't care. It's beyond me. What's going on between you humans? But if you say, listen, the world is vast, and I interpret the will of God, what's the difference between you and a Neturei Karta? You do it through a rabbi filter, and you do it through Susan's filter.
Sure. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with people believing that they know the absolute truth. I have problems with people believing they know the absolute truth and then codifying that into civil law.
Okay, so the Susan at the forefront at the frontier of Israeli Judaism is the one who comes with a sense of humbleness because I know so little. Nothing is fixed and a lot of it is relative. I'm responsible for the interpretation. I do not take dictations, and I'm communicative rather than enforcing my faith. Right. That you?
People have every right to make their argument.
Okay, that's you.
But nobody has the right to stop someone else from making their argument, as repugnant as it might be to us.
Okay, so here comes the soft-spoken, soft power Susan, soft power Judaism Susan. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, you have, whomever, I don't know, Neturei Karta, Peleg Yerushalmi, you name it. I mean, okay, some stiff neck. Okay, Am Ksheh and there is a collision. Mm-hmm. How far Susan is ready to go with her soft Judaism in order to struggle, because you moved to the forefront. You could live in the comfort zone of New Hampshire, but you came to the battlefield. Mm-hmm. So how far Susan goes? How aggressive?
I'm not leaving the country. Is that what you mean?
I don't know.
At what point will I give up, or at what point will I also play hardball?
Yeah.
So hardball to me is only as high as it rises for people who want to make my kind of Judaism illegal, right? So I'll fight. I'll help those who are fighting in court. I'll help those who are fighting for a shift in civil law. I will fight for the progressive parties to get into Knesset. I'll fight on the civil level. I wish I didn't have to. There's so much more to be done in the world, right? Like, my God, like, let's stop fighting about who's can have the power over whom in a religious way, and start, like, dealing with the real issues of what we're dealing with, the gap between rich and poor, like the occupation. I mean, like we have so much going on here. We, as a country, we could be like a light unto the nations in terms of asylum seekers all over the world. And instead we're like having to fucking just fight. Am I allowed to swear on the show?
You're a rabbi, of course you're allowed.
Let's like fucking fight for ridiculous things. What? Yeah. Like, why do we have to spend our energy doing this?
A second, okay? A second. Let's put it like this, okay? I understand that you don't want to waste time on the nuances and the margin, and you want to go to the core of the issues in order to repair the situation, that make a kind of a tikkun olam. I fully understand it. I even understand your political drive, and I completely buy into your fucking agenda. Okay? I'm there. But everything you said so far, it's not rabbinical. It's not spiritual. It's not even Jewish. It's general politics. So give me the added value. Give me the neshama yateira, which makes your philosophy an ideology in Jewish.
Right. So first of all of this is placed in a Jewish context. So if you look around at my desk, which is also our dining room table right now, you will see texts, you will see lessons that I'm writing up for Jewish communities, looking at texts and looking at the foster care system, which is my work, looking at kids in foster care through the lens of biblical and rabbinic tradition, right? So everything for me comes from that place. So I might be talking about the end point.
Susan, what is the place?
From that place is the evolution of Jewish thought, the evolution of our people, whether it's historical, whether it's
Mambo jumbo. Tell me the place. Tell me the makom. What is it? Is it faith? Is it emotion? Is it devotion? What is it? Because your Netura Karta opponent knows exactly what is the place. It's a Shulchan Aruch.
Right. It's a Shulchan Aruch. Right.
What is in the settler? In the settler?
Right, because trying to make McDonald's Judaism.
For the ultra-Orthodox, it will be the Shulchan Aruch. For the ultra-settler, it will be the land of Israel, the greater land of Israel, the holy soil. Mm-hmm. What is this place of Suzan?
It is being a Mamlechet Kohanim B'Goy Kadosh. It is being a holy nation in relationship with God, which creates a sense of belonging among people. But that belonging among people is in relationship with God, right? So that is going to be dynamic. That's going to be growing. That's going to be changing. That's going to demand that we each take our stand in that place. And then there will be some sort of communal energy that comes from it. But communal energy, a holy communal energy, isn't going to come because one tiny segment wants to control the whole thing. You know, you can say like, okay, kashrut has to be this. And if kashrut's this, 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 and this, then, you know, Mashiach will come, right? So at the same time, the same people are not prioritizing the stranger among us, right? Like, so my priority of the stranger among us comes from the same place that desire to keep some sort of perfect kashrut comes from, right? It's from God.
I'm vegan, so the whole kashrut stuff is irrelevant for me, but okay.
No. It is for you. It's not irrelevant for me, but like Rabbanut kashrut.
I don't want you to. It's too easy.
But wait, I'm not done.
Oh, so please. So go on.
I feel like the priorities that I'm fighting here are priorities in which segments of society want to control other segments of society. And I'm saying, no, actually, we have to prioritize the things where we relinquish control, the things that scare us. So if we're afraid that like asylum seekers are going to come and become, you know, like many in our community, then we have to give that over to God, right? We have to say, our job is to do the right thing. Our job is to welcome the stranger. And that's Jewish. That's from our text. That's because we were a stranger in the land of Egypt. And if that's our job, then we have to like give over our fears, to give that over to God and just do what we're supposed to do as Jews. And I'm really sick of the rituals becoming what is used to oppress us, and we're totally ignoring the values.
I fully agree with you that bureaucratic Judaism is boring. It's easy, it's controlled, it is structured, but it's boring. It's meaningless.
And
I fully agree with you. It's like, it's stupid. However, and I also work on very hard nowadays through my writing about something that I will sorry for being your interpreter for a second, how to introduce diasporic mentality into the toughness of Israeli sovereignty. Because relinquishment of power is very diasporic positively.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and sharing is very diasporic, and dialoguing is very, very diasporic, which we as Israelis never knew what is it. So this I understand. I'm working now very, very hard to conceptualize this, diaspora within sovereignty. So I buy into it. I'll tell you where I want to challenge you.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned earlier two terms that I have issues with. Mamlechet Kohanim veGoy Kadosh and Nashot HaKotel. So let's begin with Nashot HaKotel. In a second, I'll show you why in the eye of my mind, it merges into the same problem. But this is not for the sake of polemic or winning an argument, but to extract content between us, okay?
I can take it.
What is Nashot HaKotel for you? And I'll try to challenge you through my problems with it, okay? Go on.
Right. So Nashot HaKotel is not monolithic, right? There are different people have different goals within it, and we all work together. For me, the holy spaces of our nation should not be run by a single sect of our community. And Nashot HaKotel to me is a way to say, no, we're a whole Jewish people. Like Sinat Chinam is not going to serve us well at the Kotel, that we need to make space for each other in this place. And so the idea that we can, uproot a rabbanut and create an historic site that is a holy site de facto. It's just a holy site because it's holy for people who come there. Or it's not a holy site because it's not holy for people who come there. But we're allowed to bring the fullness of our energies and our humanity to that place, right? And Nashot HaKotel is an organization that's been working really hard toward that goal in various ways over the years. And the way it's sort of branching out now is, I think, really trying to just bring an egalitarian Judaism and to take civil law out of control of that place.
I hear you.
So it's a question of Judaism and it's a question of democracy, both at once.
Democracy, okay, let's leave it out of this conversation. But yeah, democracy, I agree with you. I mean, public property belongs to all. I mean, I have no problem with it, but I want to talk to you about the laser beam of Judaism, okay? You come and say, I want egalitarian and therefore more feminist Judaism, feminine Judaism. I mean, after 3,500 years of deprivation, it's about time for some affirmative action. I understand it, okay? Mm-hmm. I can offer for many texts, not all texts, I can offer a bisexual or bigenderal reading. And if there is no, I would like to offer an alternative text. Yeah, I'm with you there. Seder? Mm-hmm. And now I look at the struggle and I say, what's going on with these people? They want to be more men than men. Why Bet HaMikdash? The whole idea of Bet HaMikdash is a wrong nationalistic chauvinist definition with classes. What do you have in Bet HaMikdash? Your famous Mamlechet Kohanim. One by birth is superior, and the Kohen male is more chashuv than the Kohenet female. Mm-hmm. These people dancing every Rosh Chodesh at the Kotel that should be demolished as well? Because it's a barrier between the reality and a real egalitarian society, because it's the icon of women deprivation and discrimination and male chauvinist Judaism.
Okay, so if I was not going to engage, sorry.
So mad. I mean, it drives me crazy, but it was just a question.
Oh, it was a very neutral question. I felt no bias.
Yes, no baggage.
Go with it now. Okay, so if I were going to say that I cannot engage in an entity that is deeply sexist, I could not be alive in the world. where would I go?
Explain.
There's no place that's not deeply sexist. There's like no place in the world that is not sexist.
Suzan, in a Chevruta, we sit now and we study the future worship space of your kind of Judaism. And I'll come to that in a second. And I say, Suzan, you're not a rabbi or an architect now. Okay, design it. The one thing you will not do is design it as a kotel. Or as a bet mikdash with korbanot.
So I want to get to that. So first of all, there's no place I could be in the world that's free and like tabula rasa, right? So what if we take the place that is seen as the most holy and we do what Jews do best? We evolve. What if we say, yes, that place was full of sexism, full of hierarchy and accepted and not accepted, and in groups and out groups, and one person who can really be close to God at one time of the year, like all of that stuff is there. And that's Davka where we go. And that's Davka where it's like the centerpiece of the whole machine. And that if we can shift that, if we can open that, what are the ramifications? What emanates outward? Like, let's face, that's the reality of our world. And that reality. To attack that, to get to that, to attack with love, to get to that central place, shift.
I understand the syntax of identity politics that tries to acquire the hegemony or reacquire the hegemony. I understand it. I was deprived. I was a male. I was a female. I was a gay. I was a this and that. And so therefore I would like to have marriage, same-sex marriage, which looks exactly like the Orthodox Chatuna Lama. Because symbolically I took over the establishment. I understand the logic. I don't accept, but I understand. But I will offer you something else. I say, Suzan, listen, I have a deal for you. Let's go to Ron Chuldai, because in Israel we have Ira Chofesh and Ira Kodesh. Let's go to the Ira Chofesh and offer Ron Chuldai to build the Beit HaMikdash of Freedom in Park HaYarkon in Tel Aviv, instead of fighting this awful place.
I hear that.
Okay? Mm-hmm. This is my challenge here. Not reacquire something which I don't care about. I didn't want the first Bet Mikdash. I didn't care about the second Bet Mikdash. And I do my utmost for the third one not to be built.
Yes.
And now, okay?
Yes, I hear you. I'm part of a system. And this is funny because it's like, this is something I don't have patience for in other people, but that I'm defending in myself. So just hypocrisy out there on the table. So like, I have this joke that most people don't find funny, which is like, what do an aguna and a mime have in common? They're both trapped in boxes that don't exist, right?
Okay, okay.
But when you ask me this question, I'm also trapped in a box that doesn't exist, right?
Okay. But you behave orthodoxly within the Neshot HaKotel Katechismus.
It's like a wider box, maybe. It's maybe a bigger box and more people can come in it. But it's still a box in a sense, right? And I'm still connected to...
Fair enough.
For whatever reason, I feel like there's enough in Judaism that it's worth working the system.
So
like America, so-called, right? I mean, it's a nightmare. Well, we won't even start with Israel.
What do you say, Suzan, that you are a liberal Orthodox? Orthodoxy of liberalism. I understand. Okay, let's move on, okay? Now, I grant you something that is beyond my powers, but assuming, allegedly, I grant you unlimited power, omnipotent rabbi, omnipotent Suzan, no limitations of regulations, of male chauvinism, of resources, not even, I don't know what, not even dog shitting on the Tayele, on the Mesila in Baka, okay? I mean, the world is perfect.
The world is perfect.
You have no limits to your power, Suzan. How the vision looks like. You do it. You have to do it. You have 4 years in your term to deliver me the utopia. How the utopia of Suzan looks like?
Well, first of all, obviously I have resources, so I'm going to hire you.
Sure, that's for free.
well, what does it look like? What does it look like? I mean, I think that what I was saying early on is like, we're not fighting the stupid fights anymore. There's basic freedom for everybody, basic protections, safety net for every person in the world. Like, we're not fighting for the ridiculous things anymore. We're able to focus on things that really need us. Like asylum seekers, like the fact that millions of people, and it's only going to be getting worse, are going to be displaced from their homes. Like trafficking. I mean, I work in foster care in the US, like this is my work, right? And so luckily by Zoom, it's not a problem anymore. And what do I see? I see 400,000 kids in a system. The people right in the world with them give a fuck, but basically anyone who has power, authority doesn't give a fuck. I would say, let's stop fighting over a woman's right to choose. Let's stop fighting over this shit.
In your perfect world,
on what matters.
It's funny, you know, I gave you unlimited capabilities for unlimited dreams, and you gave me quite a practical Berkeley reality, okay? Which means we are back to the 60s, and everybody loves everybody else, and weed is for free, and there are no boundaries. Beseder, good.
But if we're creating this world, then we don't need to think about it.
No, but
right?
I want to take you a step further with your vision.
Mm-hmm.
You won your battles for no trafficking. An asylum seeker can move from worse place to better place. And even the original place is better because it is enhanced by whatever. The world is better because it moved.
Okay.
And we both agree that it will never Deus ex machina be perfect tomorrow morning, but the process started towards a built-in improvement mechanism. We can buy into it. But once the world will arrive with your train to wherever its destiny, who needs Jews?
Yeah.
Everybody will be good. You served the purpose. Mm-hmm. We erased all the borders.
Saying that, like, we just have a perfect world. So then we just live in a way that orients us in a meaningful way with our mortality.
No, but I asked you a different question. I understand people who say, I have a call from New Hampshire to Moshava Germanit or Baka or whatever it is to call a neshama. So I walked after the call and I raised my kids according to this, and I do it. But a call is something that once you deliver its message, the prophecy is fulfilled. There is no need for the prophet anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So if the world, is there a point in which you will say, Avrum, Judaism succeeded. It expired. March of Dimes. Nobody needs it anymore.
Well, it depends how you mean. Like, so for me, social justice is a big thrust of this, right? Like when I make Kiddush on Friday night, I'm, recalling the biblical story of creation.
Kiddush, sorry? Not Kiddush.
Kiddush. When I make Kiddush.
Yeah.
And I am recalling the biblical story of creation, and I'm recalling the biblical story of the Exodus from Egypt, right? And so what does that mean to me? What do I think about in my mind? I think about that the purpose of creation is bringing redemption, right? That's the link, and that orients me every Shabbat. So if you say the world is perfect and we don't have to bring redemption anymore, it could still be how I orient my life personally. It just might have to manifest differently, right? It might be how I steer a good ship, how I stay oriented. It's sort of like Shabbat, the metaphor of Shabbat as like a painter is painting on an easel, and every Shabbat is when she takes the step back and she's able to see the whole of the picture, not just the color here or the color there. Right? But we step back and we take account. We think about our highest purpose. We think about what everything looks like. And then we get back in with that vision renewed. So that would, I can imagine, still be part of my life, I would want to live in a world where we don't feel like we can have a hamburger and wash it down with the milk of the mother of the calf we just ate, I feel like I don't care about the technicalities of that. I like reminding myself that the world isn't just mine and I can take everything I want of it. That I have to think about the fact that I'm washing down that cow with its own milk, essentially. And I feel like those are good things, whether we have goals or whether we want to maintain something that's already good. that those are really important tools to orient us, to make us connection with each other, and to connect us to whatever God is.
I will offer you a formula. I mean, you don't have to take it, but I'll offer you a formula. There is Judaism of destiny, and there is Judaism of process. Okay, the Judaism of destiny is doomed eventually to expire.
Mm-hmm.
Judaism of process is endless.
Mm-hmm. That's right. It's beautiful.
So let's take two models and tell me what's the problem you have with each model, okay? Bernie Sanders,
Mm-hmm.
that is economic, social philosophy is yours. I mean, as much as he's the only secular candidate in the whole American arena,
Right.
I mean, when I listen to your rhetorics, it's his policy.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And on the other hand, you have a Lubavitcher, Ivanka Trump. I mean, kosherized completely, keeps Shabbat, goes to the mikveh, whatever she does. Where is Suzan between these two models of non-Jew Jew and very Jewish non-Jew?
You know, it reminds me of Lenny Bruce. Have you ever heard, like, Lenny Bruce has a list of, like, Jew and Goy. And it's nothing to do with who's actually, like, Jewish or who's actually, like, it's really funny, and it's like captures an essence, right? So what's the essence? Ivanka Trump, I don't see an essence at all. I see only Death Eaters in that whole orbit. That's it. All of their,
Bernie?
And Bernie, I see heart. Like, when someone said to him, what does it mean to you to be Jewish? He said, it means that I care about your grandchildren as much as I care about my own, right? So I think what he's saying is, like, I have a role in making a better future. I'm honi ma'agal, right? I'm planting that tree that I will never benefit from myself, because that's what Jews do. We build for a better future. And I feel an obligation to the future. You know, it's just not nice to, it's just, who's raised to, like, fuck other people up? Like, I want to know Republicans, what their parents sung to them as lullabies.
You know, they ask who is a conservative.
Who?
A liberal with a teenage daughter. So,
Yeah.
So tell me, okay, I hear you. You are spiritual driven, historically pushed forward by commitment of previous experience of the people, profoundly naive in believing in a better world, profoundly positively, not negatively. It's possible to have a better world. And your modus operandi is persuasion and dialogue. This is what I hear from you.
Oh, you're good. Can I call you anytime?
Sure, I charge. And within this, you have your own reservation. You do not let the wild Suzan inside to go really wild, because you have your own rules of engagement, because you don't want to lose the rest of the cohorts. And therefore, yes, the Neshot HaKotel, yes, maybe I'm with you about a big idea, but I have partners there that are partners for so many other things. So I walk the walk with them, or with whomever other. And here comes a last question. Is there an ideology or individual or group of people that Suzan says, with these people I do not sit? This is beyond my dialogist realm.
You mean on the left or in general?
Life. I mean, we try to explore here. What you offer here is for me, a very, very interesting ideology that exists between the Jordan and the Mediterranean. And this is to liberalize in the best of Habonim, Kemprama values of the 60s, the very harsh settlers Israel. This is what you try to do. You try to redeem Israel with a value system that you were brought up upon and Israel forgot. You try to build a bridge between Peter Beinhardt analysis of 10 years ago, why the two generations of American Jewry and Israeli Jewry drift apart. And you offer a bridge which is between your children and your sister's children over there, and between Israelis and the rest of the Western world. You're a bridge builder with a value system. But then I say, is there a limit? Is there somebody you don't sit with?
listen, there are people that it's not worth it to sit with.
That's a waste of time. It's so חשוב now. I mean, ideologically speaking, conceptually.
Yeah. You know, there's this sort of balance. I think this is something that my husband's pointed out, or should I say my owner?
Sure, בעלי, ממש. Sure.
My husband has pointed out, which is that...
I think בעלי is proprietor, not owner.
Okay, my
Sounds better.
Is this notion of, yes, we have to try to dismantle what's negative and harmful, but maybe it's even more important to build what's positive, right? So how do we, where do we have, the extent to which we have to dismantle the negative is the extent to which the negative has their, as Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, has their foot on our necks, right? Like we have to take the foot off our necks.
Let me breathe.
I don't even want to spend time on that, but we have to. And then once the foot's off our necks, then we can more wholeheartedly, fully build our vision of the positive.
You evade the question.
I did.
You evade the question. I asked,
I forgot it.
with whom will you not sit?
All right.
I didn't ask you, let me breathe. I cannot breathe. Remove your knee. This I understand. You are suffocated by the establishment and the process and the politics, an opportunist and whatever. But give me a school of thought that Suzan says, on this Beit Midrash I do not knock, this Beit Midrash I do not walk in.
I cannot sit. So you're looking really for a demographic, I think. But I'm not so interested in a demographic that I can't sit with. I'm more interested in the kind of person that I can't sit with. So for example, you look at politics here, politics in the US, people who lie incessantly, who just lie. I can't have a conversation with someone who's not gonna tell the truth, who's not gonna do the hard work of thinking about what they really believe, what they know, and be courageous enough to be honest. I'm not gonna sit with, you know, with the Attorney General of the United States, someone like him, right?
I do not sit with anybody who's a dialogist.
But there's not like one, like you say like, oh, I won't sit with like white nationalists. Like you could say that, but there are people in any community who maybe can grow, right? So there's no one demographic, I think, that I wouldn't sit with. It's more that there's a type of person I won't sit with, and that's the person I'm banging my head against the wall.
It's a very, very simple concept. I will not sit down with anybody who's not a dialogist. If you're a hothead, chauvinist, feminist, right-winger, left-winger, who is not open for a dialogue, I'm not interested. It's not an issue of red lines.
Right.
It's an issue of something else. Anyway, Suzan, it was an amazing pleasure.
Oh, it's all done.
And touch some of this stuff.
Talk to me sometimes.
I'm sorry?
You're still going to talk to me sometimes? You're still going to, you know, connect with me, or is this it?
Usually I do not interview, I argue. But now it's a beautiful flower you grow in your garden there, in our garden. Don't give up.
Well, we are huge fans of yours, so.
Very much, my dear. Shana tova.
Shana tova. Bye.
Bye-bye.